If they running their mouth, then they looking for trouble. Ran right up in the knowledge, now they back in the huddle. See, they know we can fight, new content every week. Me and Dr. Clyde, keep on bringing the heat. Now they know that we driven, and they know we quitting. Yo, she ain't at the winner, keep on bringing the energy. Unity, unity, unity. See, they know we ain't stopping, and they know they got problems, and they ran out of options. If they know got a problem, can't let it go unsolved. Bring back learning, Afrocentric history, we see tomorrow. Karma's karma, I say what I say, I hear underwater. Till I see I fall off, then I bring y'all up on note. I'm back up on my Clyde winners, 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 divine winters, Clyde winters, mind bender, Clyde winters, I'm Richard, ride with ya, master teacher, create masters, Clyde winters, give respect to the elder, Clyde winters. Somebody else that living for me. I told you somebody else that looking for me. I think there's somebody else that looking for me. I think there's somebody else that looking for me.
We have to live by God. We have to live by God. I have not done wrong. I have not robbed. I have not stolen. I have not drank. I have not told lies. I have not stolen food. I was not stolen. I have not fornicated with the fornicator. I have not caused anyone to weep. I have not dissembled. I have not transgressed. I have not discussed secrets. I have brought no lawsuits. I am not wrong. I am not struck dead. I am not transgressed the law. I have not been hunted. Except when I'm talking about on the song. I have not made extolling. I have not bragged. I have not cursed. I have not been violent. I have not confounded truth. I have not been impatient. I have not cursed against.
Dr. Winter's legacy is a testament to the power of knowledge and the unyielding spirit of exploration. His impact is felt worldwide, as he shares and enlightens at conferences, symposiums, and collaborative projects. His voice is a beacon in the academic world, challenging, inspiring, and always educating. His journey reminds us that the quest for knowledge is never-ending, and its impact is timeless. Dr. Winters teaches us to challenge the narratives and to learn with an open mind. As he always says, B1 is not a group, it's a lineage. Let his story inspire everybody to pursue knowledge relentlessly and to always seek the truth. Now let us welcome in the grandfather of research, the Trill OG himself, the Honorable Dr. Clyde Winters.
What up, though? What up, though? Family, how you guys doing? I'm lucky. Today I have Sister Shanice with me. This is my oracle. I got to tell you this, is that this queen, this goddess, this black goddess, this woman, whatever she says to me, she sends me on these missions. I don't want to go, but she makes me want to find out more about who we are. I've never met a woman with so much love for her people, a woman who is so always sacrificing herself, that she's always out there trying to give. She doesn't ever take, and I don't know how she can do it, because I mean, hey, I gotta take a rest. But she doesn't rest. She doesn't rest. She's always out there. She's advocating for all of us. She's a true Pan-Africanist, a true Pan-Africanist. She's not a pseudo Pan-Africanist. She's a true Pan-Africanist. She tries to make us understand and know about the entire Black world, the African world. And she really, in a sense, is an advocate of we are an African people, you see. And this is something that we have to really take into account, you see. Sister Shanice, we love your channel. You know, could you kind of talk to the family about it? How you doing, Joan, Demetrius? What up, though? Can you kind of tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, it's such an honor and a privilege to be on your platform, Dr. Winters. Wow, thank you so much for that beautiful, warm introduction as well. You know, yeah, I mean, I just have a heart for my people. I just love our people. I love our history. I love everything about us. And, you know, it's a privilege, as always, you know, to be in your company because, you know, you're a great giant out there, giant of a historian, anthropologist, linguist, educator. And, you know, it's a real honor to be under your wings, to be flying and sailing underneath the wings of the great man himself, Dr. Clyde Winters. Woo! Thank you so much. I want to rise up all your followers, your audience members, those who are going to be participating in the chat. Big up every time. Yeah, I'm Sister Shanice, and I'm a radio presenter on the Big G Galaxy Afiwi, the only de-brainwashing station. So, you know, we do the de-brainwashing on a daily basis because from our perspective, you know, we have been indoctrinated and miseducated with a history and a narrative that really is just not the truth at all. And so we're always constantly unpacking, you know, all of what has been given to us and replacing it with the truth. So I'm a presenter on that radio station. You can catch me there on a Wednesday from 10 a.m. through to 1 p.m. UK time, British summer time. And you can also catch me there on a Saturday, on alternate Saturdays as well, for the community talk shows. This is where the audience get the opportunity to call in, talk about, you know, any burning issues that they have on the forefront of their mind. You know, it's where we as a community come together and have a chat. And I have my own YouTube channel as well, the Sister Shanice Show YouTube channel. And if you go there, there's over 400 videos, and included among those 400 videos are a number of videos from the great man, Dr. Clyde Winters himself, on my channel, blazing up the place as he does, on fire, dropping huge amounts of golden nuggets about our history. We just love him in the UK, as you all do, you know, in the USA as well, I'm sure. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also an author. I've written a number of books. The first book, My Coconut Tree, which is available on Amazon. I've also written a book called King Offa. He was one of the Black Kings of England. You can get that on Amazon. And also my more recent book is, and here it is here, The Remarkable Accomplishments of Ancient African Civilization. Oh, you probably can't see it, so you'll have to go on to Amazon to have a look at that one as well. I've got King Offa here. And I've recently written a handbook, which is a tribute to Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And the good news is that handbook, that tribute handbook, is free of charge. It's a paperback, about 50 pages. You can carry it around in your bag. And the reason why it's free of charge is because I want to try and get the message of Garvey to as many young Africans, stroke Black people as possible, especially on the continent. Because, you know, Marcus Mosiah Garvey influenced my life so much, you know. If he could influence the lives of other Africans up and down the continent, we could have a new generation of visionaries, you know, movers and shakers, entrepreneurs, people who are proud of their race, people who have, you know, a huge amount of confidence to be all that they can be and more. He was a stalwart of a man in the early 20th century, and we need more like him. So that's a freebie, and you can go to our site called gumroad.com, sistershanice.gumroad.com. And while you're there, you can check out the history course that are running in partnership with the big man himself, Dr. Clyde Winters. Oh, so lots there. I'll try and post the link in the chat to Gumroad so you can download your free Marcus Mosiah Garvey book, and also at the same time check out, you know, the Black History course that we've got coming up on the 29th of this month, 29th of April. Looking forward to it.
You know, and it's very exciting. And this, you know, we are really gifted tonight, family. How you doing, Darnell Coleman, Mundeli Mayivi, and Demetrius Shepard? What up, though? But again, we're very lucky to have, you know, to be honored with Sister Shanice's presence. Sister Shanice is a very busy woman. Very busy woman. She's already told you all of the stuff she's doing. But just when you really take into account not only what she's doing today, but what she's done in the past, what she's tried to do to help her community and to bring forward to us the community. You know, and the point is this, is that, you know, this is something that people don't understand, is that many of us, especially descendants of people who went to the Caribbean, you know, is that we went through an ethnogenesis. Let me explain to you. Many Caribbean people have lost their identity and lost their way because the fact, in a sense, is that nobody in the Caribbean is really writing their history and stuff like that. But see, Sister Shanice is a beautiful example of the ethnogenesis of us as a people. What do I mean by ethnogenesis? Is that we're a unique people. And Sister Shanice is a unique person because she carries the ancestry of not only, in a sense, you know, the sub-Saharan Africans, you know, the Caribbean, but she also carries the genetic influences of the Black Irish. Many of us carry this, but the point is this, is that when you begin to accept who and what we are, where we came from, then you see the uniqueness. And see, the point that makes Sister Shanice such a unique woman is that she not only does she has a sub-Saharan African, the Black Irish, she also has that Taino spirit. That's why I'm really surprised, you know, that you know, in America we would have a tomahawk. I'm surprised she doesn't really carry a machete. You don't carry
Well on there.
Because this woman has a fighting spirit, and it's a fighting spirit that goes back to that ethnogenesis. Many people don't understand the uniqueness of those of us from the Western Hemisphere. They don't understand the uniqueness of coming from an ancestry that combines everything, that combines Africa, the Black Europeans, the Taino, you know, the Carib, that all this combination is carried. And see, we lack that knowledge, but when you're a person who really accepts your Blackness, your B1 status, that means Black first. That means that no matter where you are, you're not coming off any tribal basis. You're not saying I'm from this tribe or that tribe. You're just B1. You respect and you love your ancestry. You love your direct nationality, but at the same time, you love who and what you are. You know, Sister Shanice, how have you been able to carry this spirit of unity, a spirit of Pan-Africanism over the years? I mean, it's hard for many of us. How have you been able to do that?
I think what's helped me to be able to do that was having knowledge of myself from a fairly young age. Well, not that young really. Say from my early 20s, late teens, early 20s was when I started studying African history. And I realized from studying African history just how great we were and therefore how great we are. And, once you've got the knowledge of your former greatness, there's nothing anyone that can say to you to try and, belittle you, make you feel inferior, and it tends to work with those of us who don't know our history and don't know of our greatness and who we really are as a people. And so I think that's helped to, shape my spirit and who I am and give me the confidence that I've needed to go forward, just knowing, our former greatness. And some of our greats, also with our history, is learning about some of our former revolutionary freedom fighters, that we were fighters as a people, as you were saying, and I suppose that's given me the fighting spirit, just knowing, so much about some of our late, great, formidable freedom fighters, so many of them, who sacrificed their lives so that we can, have the shackles removed from our legs. And now today we've got to remove the shackles from our minds,
Wow.
because during those hundreds of years while we were in captivity on the plantations and were being forbidden to read, they were rewriting our history. They were rewriting the history, and by the time we were able to read, they gave us a history that they had written for us to tell us about who we were, where we come from, and that we should be thankful that they've come to save us. I mean, they rewrote history, and but the fact is, once you know how to do the research, you can go beyond, their racist interpretation and rewriting of history to actually find the truth of history as well, which is another really exciting journey, that I'm on at the moment. And thank you for inspiring me along the way. Along the way on my life's journey, I've met greats like yourself who've just been an inspiration, and I can be inspired by others. I can see the greatness in our people and, be inspired as well. So I think it's just having that open spirit to see the greatness in others, to recognize that we all have skills, we all have our abilities, we've all come to this planet with something to do, with a purpose, and that you get drawn. I believe we get drawn to people who have a similar purpose to yourself, And so, I've been fortunate enough to be drawn to like-minded spirits. So on a Pan-African radio station that I'm on, we're all like, freedom fighters, liberators, all B1 people, Black First, and it's just so inspiring. And all of our audience members, callers, people who follow us, and I see Mondele is in the audience. Yenge Mpimpa Kiambote, brother Mundele. He's a brother from the Congo. The Congo Leopard is in the house, one of our regular listeners on the Big G Galaxy every week. We're a family there as well of like-minded people, those who want the best for the continent, the best for Africa, who want to see our people lifted up, and know only too well, the mistakes that we've made along the way and why we are where we are, and therefore what needs to be done, to rid ourselves of the situation, to rise ourselves up from the situation that we're in.
Yeah, how you doing, Create so far? Dark Roots, Kobe Jojo, and Dorvale, and especially Joan. Sister Shanice, I believe that one of my mentors was when I was in high school, and I had a geography teacher, and he used to always talk about the fact that if Black people would have been smart, we would have went to Mexico and to run away from slavery. Do you have any mentors that you think about that really influenced you to become the great, magnificent woman that you are today? Oh yes, you are. You are. But
I think my greatest influencer is probably my mother.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to give my mum so much credit because, she was a God-fearing Christian woman, but she also had a Garveyite mentality, and it was empowering. Yeah, that so you'd come home to your mom and you'd complain about A or B, and the advice that she would give you was always one to strengthen you, to empower you, and to make you give you that confidence, you know. So, you know, in the UK growing up, there was a lot of racism, just like you experienced in the USA. And so but you know, not as bad, I must say. But you know, it was pretty rough for us as children growing up. We'd be called names in the playground, you know, all sorts of names. And I remember going home one day and saying complaints to my mum, who was of Jamaican background. She was from Jamaica, and she came over to the UK as part of the Windrush generation, and I was born in the UK. And I said to her, Mom, they're calling me a monkey in school. And she said with a Jamaican accent, so them have white monkey too. So I'm like, oh, they got white monkeys as well. They're calling me a monkey, they're a monkey. So she'd always have a response, you know, that would just make you feel better about whatever the situation was that you might complain about. And I think, you know, and she would, you know, encourage us to shop amongst our, you know, community as well, which was really good. So go to the black man shop down the road, and there, you know, you will find and get this and get that. And so, you know, at the same time, she was teaching us that we need to be selective about where we go and spend our money, who we shop with, you know, and not realizing that I was being taught black economics, for example. You know, so there were many of those sorts of lessons that I had. And also I did have some really good school teachers, primary school teachers as well. And I think, you know, my brightest years was when I was in my primary school and getting my primary school education. And it's that primary school education that really helped me through life, because by the time I got to secondary school and started experiencing the racism from the teachers and the children at secondary school, you know, I just rebelled and, you know, spent a lot of time skipping school and having more fun out on the road. So, you know, later on, obviously, you know, I bucked up my ideas and went back into education. But it was those formidable years, there's those foundational years of my primary school education up to my early teenage, up to about the age of 13, that really helped to give me, you know, the education that I then went on to do later on, you know, in life. So those primary school education teachers were great. And as I said, my mum was a Christian, so we grew up in church. There were 7 of us as children following behind her like little ducklings every Sunday to go to church. And we had some great Sunday school teachers there who would, you know, so we had the Christmas parties. They'd take us home for Sunday tea, and we'd have cakes at their house. We couldn't afford cakes at our house at that time. You know, so yeah, I did have some great people along the way. And obviously when I went into the sort of Pan-African kind of family circle, many more greats there as well that I met along the way, and authors as well who influenced my thinking as well. Many great American authors as well as British. Yeah, so.
Well, you know, it's wonderful, but you know what I'm proud of, in relation to you so much, Sister Shanice, is that you've been able, in a sense, to transform. You know, in your book, you know, King Alpha, you not only, in a sense, talk about this great, you know, Black king. You also present an overview of the history, all the way going back to Chatham and some of the others. And I think that is so important, because, see, family, you know, the work of Sister Shanice is that she's providing a foundation for the children over there, because, as she said, growing up over there in England, the racism, the you know, the hate sometimes that you feel. I really like the fact that she's providing, you know, us with, you know, the people there with books that they can know about themselves. And also her daughter writes children books, you know, but that's another story. We'll have to talk about that some other time. But, you know, what would you say is the most important thing that we as African people should be doing?
The most important thing that we need to be doing is practicing pulling each other up. That's the most important thing that we need to be doing. If we were all pulling each other up, we would all be so much better off as a people. We have a saying in the Caribbean, we call it crab in a barrel. You know, the crab in a barrel situation is where we're all at the bottom of the barrel, and if one tries to go up, there's people in the barrel that will pull that person back down again. But imagine if we reverse that and one person was to go up and they would stretch down and pull another person up, and those two would then stretch back and pull another four up, and we were all pulling each other up and elevating each other. Wow, we would be transforming the situation that we find ourselves in, almost overnight. So that's one of the most important things that we need to do. And if we're pulling each other up, that means we're supporting each other, we're investing in each other. The love that we have for ourselves, we will be giving to each other. We would be our brothers and our sisters, supporters, helpers. We would be able to look to each other and know that help is there if we needed it. We would be able to work together because we're pulling each other up. So we would have, we would be able to trust and have confidence in each other. Oh, it would be amazing.
How you doing, Mahogany X and Trench Dweller FBA? Dorvell is a great researcher, and this man is always putting, he's always sending me material that just really makes me have to think about stuff. He just sent me this article about, and it was talking about the word Ethiop. Instead of it meaning black face, it can mean black face, but it also means the brilliant ones. And so in a way, what he's shown us is that we're not only in a sense, the black face people, but we're a brilliant people. And family, that's what makes, talking to Sister Shanice so important, is that she is such a shining. She is shining. And when you understand that Ethiop means shining, and that she's a star. And the thing is that we need this. We need to understand, back in the 70s and 60s during the Black Power movement, the brothers always felt that if you had a sister around, no matter how dynamic she was, well, hey, go over there and cook some chicken, baby. Get them hot dogs and mustard. But today is different. Today is different because the fact, in a sense, that we have so many explorers. Yes, Sister Shanice is an explorer. She's exploring our ancestry. She's, in a sense, leading us down a path that can help us to be true, be one, Black first people. Dorvell asked the question, Sister Shanice, do you have Pan-African scammers in the UK like in the US?
None actually come to mind, and that's probably because I'm just so busy doing what I need to do. In the UK, unlike the USA, we're a lot smaller in numbers. So the community is much smaller in the UK. And so we don't have the huge size organizations that you might have in the USA. And, whatever we tend to do tends to be a lot smaller in scale. So, if there's any kind of scamming or anything like that, it's probably quite small scale. I have been aware of a couple of incidences where people from the UK have actually worked with some family members from America, and got kind of swept up in these big schemes where they've invested quite a lot of money, and that's all gone pear-shaped. And that's because I think British people, they love things that's foreign as well, and they're probably quicker to invest and go with something foreign than they are likely to support something local. And we'll always stay small if we're not supporting what's local. But it's difficult as a people in the UK, and it may not be the case for the USA. It's very challenging turning over finances within our own community. All the research and all the surveys show that the money comes into our community and then goes straight out again. we tend to spend with other communities more so than we do with our own community. So we're less likely to be scammed then, or to have scammers, you know, I suppose, therefore, in our community. And if we do, it's quite small scale. I'm not aware of any major incidences to speak of.
Mahogany S says, yes, Sister Shanice, pulling each other up is most important. It is important that we pull each other up, and I think that's what I like about your example as a queen, as a Black queen, as a goddess. And you know, you guys are saying, Dr. Winters, why are you using these words? Yeah, these are supposed to be quote unquote woke words, but when you meet, in a sense, someone who's working so hard to spread the message that we're an African people, working so hard to let us know that by working together, we can become successful. And we are successful through our work, our hard work. You know, things have happened over in London. And instead of, in a sense, you know, a lot of things, people have been mistreated by the police. They've been mistreated by the community. They may have been in politics and ignored. And yet Sister Shanice has always kept her eye on the prize. What is the prize? The prize family is being B1, you know. So I asked Chenise to come on tonight so she could kind of tell you about life in Britain. Okay, a lot of times, in a sense, I hear so many people talking about, okay, whenever you talk to people over in Britain across the pond, they're always talking about American scholars. Well, we have a great researcher over there, and we need to know what's going over there, because the Sister Shanice is over there across the pond, and she's spreading, in a sense, the knowledge of who we are, how we can become successful. So, you know, Sister Shanice, can you kind of tell us a little bit about the Britons? And I'm using this not just in an ancient sense, but just talking about the original name for the Black people who used to live in Britain. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
if you
sure.
have your slide presentation.
Yeah, you want me to pull up the presentation? Okay, let's go for it. Yep, right. Let's share screen. Looking forward to this. So thank you. Yes, I'm always trying to dig beneath the surface and, you know, try and find out more about our history and who we are as a people. And let's do this, go to slideshow and hit that there. Okay, can you see the presentation? The first slide?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to plug in my charger because it takes up the whole screen, and I won't know if I drop out. Okay, if my battery goes low. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Clyde, for inviting me onto the show to talk about foundational Black Britons. You know, most of us in Britain are told that basically we came over with the Windrush, which was during the 1950s and early 60s when our parents came over. And most of us went through school, college, and university not knowing about, you know, the huge amount of history that we've got in Britain. So I'm going to be sharing some of that knowledge with you today. And it's really just a snippet and a bit of an insight, because we're going to be going much deeper into all of this on the course that I'm doing with Dr. Winters. So in the UK, we have an education system that's actually set up to fail us as a people. And then once they failed us, they turn around and call us failures. The system is set up to fail us, and then they call us failures. And we're taught a history in the UK that really denigrates us. It's designed to make us feel inferior and then superior. And so, you know, we know, therefore, that history is really important, because if you have the truth of history, you can have a history that's going to empower you. You're going to have a history that's going to let you know who you are as an African and lift you up. And the education doesn't do that. In the most part, what we're taught about ourselves is a distortion and is a misrepresentation of who we really are as a people. And it is designed to denigrate us. And, you know, a lot of our people actually go around with a feeling and a sense of hopelessness, a feeling and a sense of, you know, our people never having accomplished anything, you know, and that's because that's what the education system does. There are those, we have professors actually, you know, in the education system who follow a particular narrative. And I'm going to give you an example of one in a second. And as I said in my opening, when I was having a conversation with Dr. Winters, and it's that even though I was actually born in the UK, I went through school, college, and university, not knowing a fraction of what I know now about my Black British history. And even in my earlier days, when I was learning about African history, I was really learning about the great empires of Africa. I was learning about Egypt. I was learning, you know, about all the kingdoms and the great cities, not realizing that I had a great amount of history that I needed to learn in the UK as well. So, you know, that's what I'm focusing on. But I have to get past people like Hugh Trevor Ropers. And Hugh Trevor Ropers is one of these English historians who was actually a Regius Professor of Modern History at the University of Oxford, no less. And, you know, when someone gets the title of being of a Regius, you know, that means that they actually belong to like a professorship body within the university. It's a status that's recognized by the king of the country, you know, and he was actually holding the position of this high position as a Regius Professor at the university. So you would think, you know, that he would have considerable knowledge about our history. You know, he's got a title that's linked to royal patronage. Gosh, and he's a professor of history. He must know a lot about history. But what is he quoted as saying? He's quoted as saying that as late as 1963, perhaps, he said, in the future, there will be some African history to teach. But at present, there is none. Only the history of Europeans in Africa. The rest is darkness. Oh my days. Those of you who have been following Dr. Winters and have been learning about Black history on his channels, you know, you must be falling over right now to hear to even begin to imagine that someone of such a status could make a quote like that. Wow. And it's this sort of narrative, really, that has been spouted out by the likes of Hugh Trevor Roper, that's been indoctrinating the world with this false narrative of us as Africans, suggesting that we don't have an history and that there's nothing in African history to speak of. Oh my gosh, can you imagine that? Someone of his status could say something like that, when the reality is that not only do we have a great history as Africans globally around the world, and especially on the continent of Africa itself, but, you know, we have a great history to speak of in Britain, a history of Black aristocracy, Black royalty, huge amounts of history. And we as a people have a greater connection to Britain and England than they would want to have us even be aware of. And as I said, they talk about the highly publicized Windrush generation as if that's when we came over to England. But the reality is that we have been in England for tens of thousands of years. And as Dr. Winter said, in my book, A Black King of Anglo-Saxon England, 757 to 796 CE, I do actually provide a background in that book that talks about our African connection to England that started way back, as far back as about 44,000 years ago, and is likely to be much earlier than that. as well. So we were here, and we are more British than most of us think we are, and we are more British than the English, the white English, would want us to know that we are. We have a significant presence here here in England. Okay, so let me give you a slide that talks a little bit first just about, which points out some significant periods of English history that we have been omitted from. So you've got the prehistoric Britain, that takes us up until about 43 AD. We've got the British Iron Age era up to about 800 BC. So no, prehistoric Britain, that goes way back tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of years, up to about 43 AD. There you've got, that overlaps with the Iron Age era from about 800 BC. Then you've got the Roman Britannic era from 43 to 410 AD. You've got the sub-Roman Britain era, the Anglo-Saxon era, the Normans, the Plangestant, the Tudor, the Elizabethan, the Stuart, the Jacobins, the Carolines. You've got all these different eras in English history, and much, much more up to present time. And when you go through school, college, and universities in the UK, we learn history about all these different eras and these different periods, but we're missing. We're not in the picture. And it turns out, that we are in the picture, and we have been in the picture a lot longer than even the white people, because we were the original people of Britain before they even arrived. Wow, some people might think, really? Okay, we're going to go into that as well. So, but before we go into the Asian populations of Britain, I want to go back to Africa first of all, so that we get to know of some of the different groups of Africans in Africa, on the continent of Africa, so that we can begin to piece together and work out who the Africans were that actually reached Britain. So when I come to talk about the Africans in Britain, you'll have an idea of the different groups of African populations that actually existed on the continent itself. Okay, so also what I found that I want to share with you very importantly is that when you start reading about history, now before I went to school, college and university in the UK, I knew of the numerous different names that we were known by as Africans. That may have helped me quite somewhat to know, when I was being talked about in the history books, because you can read history, and if you're not familiar with some of the names that they call us as Africans in their books, and it's almost as if every European author has a different name for us to hide the fact that they're talking about us. This is how you'll understand what I'm talking about in a little while when I share with you some of the names that we are known by, or when they're talking about us in those history books and those documents. You're going to hear some of the names. And so knowing who they're talking about, knowing who they're doing, all their historical data in that's going to help you to begin to see yourself in the history. Because what they also do when they're writing when they write history, even when they're writing about us, to deliberately obscure the fact that they're talking about us, not only do they give us all these unusual names, but they paint images of themselves as well in the picture. Yeah. And so when they paint the images of themselves in the picture, when we read it, we think, they're the ones that they're talking about. But it's not necessarily the case. Okay, so, you know, that's something also to bear in mind when you're reading the history. So prior to the arrival of white people, Africans were spread throughout Europe. And I'm going to go through now some of the many names that we were known by. And it really depends on, you know, the various books you read, whether you're going to come across some of these names or not. And so from 4000 to 1500 BC, we might be known as the Basques or the Tartessians or the Iberians of Western Europe. We might be known as the Picts of Britain or the Lapps of Scandinavia or the Ligures of Britain or the Ruthenians of the Alpine region, the Eliminians and the Siciliani or Sicily, the Etruscans of Crete, the Etoscripiops of Cyprus, the Etruscans and the Comnenians, all these names I can hardly pronounce, but these are all different names for us as Africans, groups of us as Africans that you're going to read about in the books and not even know that they're talking about us. These are some of the names that I took from a book called When the World Was Black, the Untold History of the World's First Civilizations. Yeah, page 230 to 231. You'll see these names when they're referring to us. There are more, that's not all of them. Some more names that you'll probably come across, and the list is not exhaustive. You know, when you're reading about us, they might call us Ethiopians, Fezans, Berbers, Copts, Nubians, Fagwans, Ceylon, Indians, Kumar, Indochina, Zabig, Celts, Vikings, Druids, Arabs, Phoenicians, the old Idites, the Kushites, the Kushites with a C, the Chaldees, the Brahmians, the Sumerians. Wow. As today, I suppose, we are known by many names as Africans, you know. So I'm an African, but I might be called British. There's Africans in America, you might be called Americans. There's Africans in Canada and all over the world, you might be Canadians. There's the French Africans. And then on the continent of Africa as well, there's thousands of different, you know, nations and different national groups known by many names. And so, you know, when these writers are writing our history and writing about us in history, if they want to intentionally try and obscure the fact that they're talking about us as a people and our accomplishments, you know, they'll hide us behind some of these names. And there's more names, okay? These are some of the names that I've come across that we are called as the founding fathers of Britain. So when they write about and they talk about, you know, us as the founding fathers of Britain, or talk about the founding fathers as Britain, they're not telling us it's us. They might call these people the Baratanaks or the Furblogs or the Tuatha De Dananns, the Milesians, the Goidels, the Fomorians, the Numidians, the Parathalonians, the Etruscans, the Pelagashkians, the Carthaginians, the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, the Amorites. So, you know, you're getting the picture of how easy it is to obscure the fact that they're actually talking about us as a people in their history books. Here's more names, you know, the Pelagians, we've heard those already, the Anu people, the Mediterranean race, the Hamites, the Cro-Magnon, the Gromaldis, the Euro-Africans, the megalithic race, the Nordic, Teutonic race, the Melkoni race. I mean, all of these names, you know, I've had to research and realize when they're talking about our history that they're actually talking about us as Africans. And so, you know, when they're talking about the Cro-Magnons, the early human beings who lived 40,000 to 10,000 years ago, they're the Africans. When they talk about the Anu people who introduced the Neolithic age to Europe and who founded the ancient Crete, they're actually talking about us. When they talk about the Anu people who gave birth to the Minoan civilization, they're talking about us. You can find out when the world was black on page 222. When they talk about the Nordic or the Teutonic race of people, W. Du Bois published a paper and he was summarizing Sergi's arguments from this And he was talking about in there the great Euro-African stock that came from the Nordic or Teutonic race. When you talk about the melancholy, this means black colored, but translated as dark whites, who were the indigenous people of Southern Europe. When the world was black, we'll tell you about that as well, the melochronic people. And when some of the historians talk about the Gauls and some of the ancient Spaniards, Italians, Greeks, Syrians, Arabs, the Persians, as well as the Celts and Iberians, the Etruscans, the Romans, many, many more are described in the book. And these people are described as having coarse, wavy or straight black hair, long heads, dark eyes. Some are said to be darker complexion than others. In other words, these are all different shades of Africans, black people who have been described in some of these books. We've even been called Hamites, Euro-Africans, the Mediterranean race, and so on. So be aware that when you're doing the research into our history, that you also need to familiarize yourself with the many, many different names that they use to describe us as African people or as black people. But despite all of the many names, you know, they're talking about Africans, black people, okay? When they talk about the black people that spread Islam as well, again, they're going to be known by many different names. So you can see it goes on. Sergi, the population of Europe. Churchwood speaks about the megalithic race. Grafton, Elliot Smith talks about the brown race, the Asian Neolithic inhabitants of Britain and the British Isles on both shores of the Mediterranean. Johnson, he speaks of the Aru people of Europe who could be traced back to Northeast Africa. Fleur talks about the people of Sweden, Britain and France who were Swati. What does Swati mean? Well, I'll give you that definition in a little while, but actually let me give it to you now. It means, okay, here it is. And this definition, I think I got from the Oxford Dictionary. It means, hold on, no, it's not. Hang on. I'll come back, but Swati is when they're talking about Euro-Africans, black people. It means it's a description of someone's complexion, a dark complexion. When they say you're Swati, it means you've got a dark skin and of a dark complexion. I'm saying that from memory because I thought I had it in my notes, but I can't see it here. But it's talking about somebody who is of a dark complexion when you say they're Swati. So when Fleur in his writing is talking about the people of Sweden and Britain and France who were Swati, hidden behind that Swati description is the meaning that these were people of a dark complexion. When Johnson speaks of the Anu people, these are the people of Europe who could be traced back to Northeast Africa. Who are these people of Northeast Africa? We're going to go and look at them as well. So if you can see what's on this migration map here, what it is telling you is that based on the works of the anthropologists and the geneticists and based on archaeological findings, through the study of their fossil remains and DNA, they're saying that humans actually originated in Africa. On this map, it's saying that, you know, we were there. It's a bit small. I think they had here from about 1 million years back. I think this one goes. Let me see if I can see it. Can you see, Dr. Clyde, what the earliest date is that they have on that map? It's a bit small, the print here for me. Okay, let's leave it there, not to worry. But the original one that I saw, they had 200,000 years ago that Africans started migrating out of Africa to the rest of the world. But in the updated anthropologists and genetics works, they're saying now that humans, as we know, humans have been on the earth for over 300,000 years, and that the origins obviously is in Africa, can be traced back to Africa, and from Africa we migrated to different parts of the globe. And on this map, it's showing you the dates that they say that we arrived in different parts of the world. Okay, and even though they've got these dates here, as I said, you know, some say about a decade ago, they were saying that we started the migration over 200,000 years ago. Now, fossil remains that are coming up is saying that the age of us as humans, 300,000 years old, we started migrating across Africa and out to the rest of the world from there. So in another decade, you know, they'll probably be saying that, you know, we go back 400,000 years, 500,000 years, you know, a million years. But what we do know is that we are much, much older than the history books, I think, are leading us to believe, and that we could even be going back millions of years. And some of these fossil remains that they found that are, you know, millions of years old, that they're saying, you know, we're going through the phases of evolution, you know, we're probably going to find as well that, you know, some of those fossils may actually have been full human beings. Time will tell, because, you know, we're seeing with a lot of advances in technologies and genetics these days that a lot of new evidence is coming up, and it's expanding our knowledge and our understanding of our history. And wherever you go around the world, from ancient, when you look at some of these ancient rock art paintings, you can see similarities. So in Southern Africa, this is a rock art painting in Southern Africa, and you can see those arches there and the circle with the dot in the middle there. And it's been linked to sun worshippers, the solar, the sun. And then you go to Ireland and you can see where they've got the swirls and the circles, the concentric circles, and the triple circles as well. These are the three tripled tricyclic circles. And then you go to Australia 50,000 years ago, and you've got something very similar here, you know, all these circles. And then you go, over here to Australia and over here to the United States. This is Australia on this side. Look, similar rock art and cave paintings, you know. So what does this suggest? So here we are with the map. We can see that, you know, the original people, the oldest people, according to genetics and the fossils and the DNAs and the rest of it, come from Africa. And these people then populated the rest of the globe. And it seems that wherever they went, they took some of their artwork with them. And, you know, there was a similarity in the culture and a similarity in what they were actually presenting, as well as rock art and cave paintings. So here we go. So we know that as Africans, if we are around 120,000, 200,000 years ago, and more recent research saying 300,000 years ago, and from there we would have developed as human populations, and our lifestyle would have developed there, our culture would have been developed before we started migrating. So we would have populated most of Africa first and spread out from Africa, and we would have taken our culture and all that knowledge and the science and everything else that we had. And as you can see, we were quite artistic as a people, and this is all symbolism. There's a lot of meaning behind all of this as well. We took all that knowledge with us wherever we went. So let's have a look at some of the groups of Africans that actually migrated out of Africa. So we've got the Khoisan people, and the Khoisan people are said to be the earliest groups of Africans to have reached Europe and Britain. Okay, so Khoisan, that's a collective term to refer to the various hunter-gatherer indigenous populations of the southern African region. And so it's not referring to a particular ethnic group, but what it's saying is that the Khoisan people, there's a group term, the Khoi Khoi, and that these people existed in the region of South Africa at least 150,000 years ago. And the word San, some say, is from the Khoi language and means sand. And another source has said that San refers to the people as foragers who pick things from off the ground. So, you know, they're not the group that have the livestock following them. They tend to live off of the land. And they've got the status of being the first people because they hold the genetics of the most ancient Homo sapien people. And here are some images of what the San people of South Africa look like. And, you know, bearing in mind that as Africans, we migrated from out of Africa and traveled across the globe. You can see from the facial images of these San people of South Africa why they are often being referred to as the ancestors of the Asians. And as we know, you know, the original Asians were black, the original Indians were black, the original Chinese were black, the original Japanese were black, you know, and you can see from their distinctive facial features how it is that these people would have been the ones, which genetics proved as well, and the language and their characteristics to be the group that have given rise to the people in that part of the world. And then we have other groups that had Zebis, the Mabutu people, and the original people of ancient times. You know, this other group, they tended to live in the most remote parts of the world, and they tended to live at one with nature. You can often find these people in forested areas. They knew the seasons, they knew all the different fruits of the land, they knew the healing herbs of the land, the trees, they used everything off the land for their shelter, for their clothing, for their instruments, you know. And it's also suggested that these people, the Hadzibi people and the Mabutu people, were the ancestors of the modern Khoisan people that expanded to South Africa as well from Eastern and Central Africa before 150,000 years ago. So by the beginning of the mega drought, 130,000 years ago, it's saying that there were two distinctive ancestral population cluster groups in Africa. And they were the ancestral group of the Khoisan and the bearers of the haplogroup L16 in Central and Eastern Africa. And they gave rise to the San population of the hunter-gatherers. And so, you know, the Khoisan people are said to be the most ancient group of Africa because they have the most ancient DNA, the L16 haplogroup DNA. And yeah, they were the hunter-gatherer people as well. So these groups are the nearest groups to the San population. The Hadzibi people in north-central Tanzania, and the Mabutu, short-statured Africans from eastern Congo. I don't tend to use the word pygmies because we see that as a disrespectful way of referring to short-statured people, okay? And notice, you know, that these short-statured people actually paint their skin as well. That's going to come up again quite soon. All right, so here we have more people of the forest. Like I said, if you read some of the books, they're going to call them pygmies, but we'll call them short-statured Africans. When we talk about the Picts of England, Ireland, and Scotland, the Picts of Britain, they're also described as short-statured people. And notice the similarities. I noticed the similarities when I'm looking at the words, actually. Pygmies, short-statured people. Picts, small, short-statured people. And in Jamaica, we have a term called pygmies. And this is sometimes the name that they call small children. So I thought, okay, pygmies, pigs, pygmies, all basically meaning short people. Okay, so here we have some short-statured people from the Maputi nation, and they actually collect their twines from the forest, and they use it to make their housing. And look at the shape of their housing. You know, look at the shape that they use to make their housing. They actually get those branches and they use it to kind of construct a shelter. They bend it into that arch shape, and then they cover it with leaves and other branches. But those branches that they bend, that's what creates like the solid structure for their houses. That's really significant, because we're going to see some structures that look like that, not in Africa, but elsewhere. Okay, and also note the people, these short-statured people, because we're going to see them elsewhere as well, outside of Africa. And here's a picture of our short-statured people living their semi-nomadic life, depending on the forest, as I said, for their food, shelter, and clothing, and their way of life. Here they've made nets, and they're going to use that to catch their game. And for them, it's a beautiful way of life. You know, they're at one with nature. They take care of the forest. The forest gives them everything that they need. And as a people, they work together in a cooperative way. They support each other. They share with each other, because everything they do, they need each other. And so they have this harmonious society that they've created. And we've also got short-statured people from the East Congo region as well, who they negatively call pygmies, but, you know, we call the short-statured people. And note that these people actually paint their bodies. So these people in the East Congo area are called Baka people. They live in the forest under the cover of leaves. They hunt using nets. They gather wild honey. So very similar to the group that we were just talking about before, the short-statured people that we were just referring to. Likewise, they practice a rites of passage, body painting, circumcision, scarification. They know the benefits of the medicines from the forest leaves as well. And they're also believed to be known for magic and have mystic energies. Okay, and as we know, when the church, Christianity came in, they referred to their mystic energies as being, you know, a heathenist kind of belief system. But these are people of the Congo, really very interesting group of people. And here we have the Asians doing some body painting, and there's some distinctive symbols that they use on their bodies when they do their body painting. So you've got the Baka people who do the body painting, you've got the Bayaka people, the Bambutis, the Batwa, all different names for different small statured groups of Africans. All right, indigenous hunter-gatherer, small statured people, mainly in the DRC Congo region. But you've also got these small statured people that can be found in the Central Republic of Africa. They can be found in Cameroon, Tanzania, Uganda, but they're all known to be one of the oldest population groups, and you know, go way back to the Stone Age era and live very much a Stone Age kind of lifestyle in some of these forest areas until today. With modern culture, we're encroaching on their way of life. But a lot of these nations, some of them, you know, who remained in the forest, maintained this way of life. And as I said, you've got, you know, modern society that's encroaching onto their way of life. So, for example, you've got the Bantus, who are a taller group of people, and they're also in the forest. And these people now have developed a bit of a interdependent relationship with the small statured Baka people, because the Bantus in Africa are the farmers and the agriculturalists, and they would exchange some of their food for the meat and the game that the other group, the Bacats, would catch during the hunt. So they've got this relationship going on, but also now you've got the Bantus who are in the forest doing the logging, and you know, it's encroaching on the lifestyle of the people who decided to remain in the forest. So here we've got some Mbuti boys in their traditional blue body paint. I've put that in red because that's significant. It's going to come up again in this presentation. So these are a group of short-statured people who use a traditional blue body paint to paint their body as part of their tradition. And here we've got the Bambutis of Uganda, again, another group of short-statured people closely related to the Batwa people. Again, as I said, they live in the forested areas, and some of them still do in Uganda, Rwanda, as well as in the Congo as well. And they have similar cultural beliefs as well that they share with the Khoi people of South Africa. So there's a lot of sharing of cultural beliefs as well amongst these people. And then later on, you've got the Bantu people who are a bit taller that came in as well to the region and crossed into Uganda and have settled in that area as well. So here's some of the names for the short-statured Africans in the continent of Africa. Note the similarities in the names. I was noting the similarities as I was doing this bit of research. The Baka, for the short-statured people of the Congo, the Batwa for the short-statured people of Uganda, see the Ba and the Twa. Then you've got the Twa people from South Africa, the original people of Ireland, who are also referred to as Twas. You've got the Mbutu, short-statured people of the Congo, the Hadzabe from Tanzania, the Khoisan, collective term for all the Khoi, the San people, etc., from the Southern African region. But yeah, some of the names for the various groups of short-statured people and the Khoisan people from the southern region of Africa. So we've got the central region of Africa, the southern region of Africa, and we've got the Nilotics. The Nilotics now, these are the groups of Africans who are mainly from the South Sudan region, and they tend to be the ones that have the very dark complexions, often described as the darkest, most blackest people in the world, beautiful dark black complexion, and they're also among the tallest people in the world as well. You might get some who have a bit of a dark brown complexion, but the majority are very, very dark. And some of the descendants of the Nilotic people, they've mixed with the Bantus, and so that has reduced the height of the population. And the Bantus tend to be the height and the groups of people from the West African region as well. The Bantus are your Africans that tend to have, you know, the broad nose, the big butts, you know, the Bantus, and they tend to be shorter. So you've got the mixing of the different groups of Africans as well. And then you've also got the languages. Despite the mixtures, you've got some groups that have retained their language as well, and you've got the Dinkas in there as among the taller groups of Africans as well. So let's have a quick look at some of our beautiful dark-skinned Africans. There's some beautiful South Sudanese models. They tend to be, as I said, very tall and very dark, and this particular model was found spotted in a refugee camp and is now on the runway. So the Dinkas of South Sudan, another group of Nilotic ethnic people who practice facial scarification, and they live along the Nile and all the way up to South Sudan. Skip along. As I said, they practice body scarring as well. That's an important part of their cultural feature. And they have rituals that the Bakat and some of the forest people have as well. They do the rites of passage. They have their boyhood to manhood ceremonies. They practice, some of them practice circumcision as well. And, you know, they work together collectively and have that communal kind of way of life. And there's also the Dinka people who mostly live along the Nile, and they're the ones who tend to follow their cattle, and you can find them all over the South Sudan region as well. Again, they're the taller groups of Africans, traditional agricultural and pastoral people, rely on their cattle. That's very much part of their culture, and you know, they profit from the meat of their cattle as well, and it's all a status thing. So we've covered, you know, the main groups of Africans. So did any of our ancestors in Africa actually journey to Europe and Britain in particular and find themselves there? What do you think the answer to the question is? Is it the likelihood that any of these groups found their way to Britain? We know from the map, the migration map, from the fossils and the DNAs, that there were Africans that indeed did journey out of Africa and populate the rest of the globe, because, you know, originally the world was black. So what evidence is there of Africans in Britain? Is there any evidence of the African population living in ancient Britain? Is there a case to challenge the mainstream belief that African presence in Britain is a recent development or solely tied to the transatlantic slave trade? Because that was another part of the indoctrination, that if we happen to be in Britain, oh, it was because we were enslaved and some kind white person actually brought you over to Britain as a slave, you know, to work in their household. That's another common kind of bit of a narrative and the picture that we're sold to justify or as a reason for why there might be a black presence in Britain, or it was due to colonialism, or, you know, we've come over as servants. So what evidence is there, you know, outside of the transatlantic slave trade and the Windrush, that there was an African presence in Britain? Okay, well, let's look at the art of the small stature people. This is what they call, now we've gone over to Britain, the Africans have a different name. Do you remember one of the names that I said to you in the beginning that we were known by in Britain was the Picts? And this is what they call Pictish art. And this is also called pre-Celtic Pictish art. It's a decorative art form, existed in Europe in ancient times, right through to the Bronze Age and the Iron Age era. And even today, you can find these ancient stones all over Ireland, England, Scotland, and when you recognize and realize that this is a symbol, what they call it, the Triskele Trinity symbol, Triskele Trinity symbol, and that it is linked to the Picts, the small statured people, and their spiritual beliefs, then you begin to recognize the Pictish symbols. So this design here of the three Triskele Trinity symbol represents the number 3. And this was also considered quite significant in Druid lore as well, because it symbolized either the cycle of life, the seasons, light and darkness. So it had a lot of meaning. And, you know, the Picts were quite well known for their elaborate geometric shapes, for their spirals, the symmetry in their designs. And this is one of them to recognize. And you can actually find this on some of the oldish Irish monuments and in Britain. And here we have some stones, and these stones were found at the grave of someone called Ola Fulla. Ola Fulla's tomb is over 3,000 years old, and he was a king and a lawmaker. And you can see these ancient symbols inscribed all over his tomb. And also I came across when I was looking at some of the artifacts that they found in some of these tombs, I found that if you look close enough at this figure here, look, you can see it here. And if you look at some of the designs on this piece of artifacts itself, and this is it zoomed in, it's these circle designs here. Wow. So you've got the same designs and the same Pictish symbols that's on Olafulla's tomb on some of those gold objects that have been found in some of these tombs. And these symbols here are all recognized as Pict symbols and inscriptions. And they're all variation and very precisely carved into stones. So some of them they called like solar sun symbols. Some of them are cup marking rings, they call them. They have different names for these sort of symbols. But, you know, once you recognize them, when you start seeing them on the stones, you know, the Triskele one that we just looked at, this has got 2 spirals instead of 3. Then you've got the spiral on its own, a circle within a circle and outer circles as well. You know, different symbolism. This is a book in itself, really, to go into the symbols and the markings and the engravings here. So let's talk about when the Picts actually arrived in Britain. Well, they actually arrived during the Stone Age era, and back then Britain was known as Albion. This is when the small statured Picts arrived. And we've got a quote here from the book of someone called Lawrence Austin Waddell. And so who was he? His title was Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Austin Waddell, loads and loads of letters after his name. He was a Scottish explorer and professor of the Tibetan, and he was a professor of chemistry and a pathologist. He was an Indian Army surgeon. He was a collector of Tibet and amateur archaeologist. So this is who he is. And in his book, and this is one of a number of books he wrote, but one of the main names that he was referring to when he was talking about the small statured people is he was calling them in his book the Picts. And he said the Picts were small statured, dark race of Albion or Britain, and they were also known as the Chaldees. Okay, so again, it's important to remember that one of the names of the original people of Britain is that we were known by is the Picts. And the Picts traveled to Britain from Africa during the Stone Age era. In fact, they traveled to all continents around the world. All right, so here we have them. Here's Albion. Here's a really old map when Britain was known as Albion. And as you can see, there are a number of different colours on the map because these different parts of England represented different kingdoms. So Britain at one time, you know, had as many as about 14 kingdoms. Okay, when you have a kingdom, you know you have a king who is reigning over that domain. And so, you know, Albion, the island that we now know as Britain, was in earlier times known by the Greek geographers as Albion, starting in the 4th century BC and possibly earlier. And they used Albion to distinguish Britain from Ireland, because Ireland was referred to as Lerne and other smaller islands in the British Isles. So here we have the name of one of the earliest names, and that was just during the 4th century BCE. So it went back prior to that. We've got another professor by the name of Professor Boyd Dawkins, and let's see what he has to say about some of the early people of Britain. Well, he's got a chapter in his book called Our Iberian Forefathers, and he did a presentation on the 18th of January back in 1879, and it was a public lecture in the city's science lecture room, and he was lecturing on the earliest ancestors of the bygone days. And in that lecture, he said that the ancient Britons, Irish, Scots are short, black people. That's on page 103 of his book. And Professor Sir William Boyd Dawkins, again, loads of letters after his name. He was a British geologist, archaeologist. He was a member of the Geological Survey of Great Britain. He was a curator for the Manchester Museum and professor of geology at Owens College in Manchester. And he's noted for his research on fossils and the antiquity of men. So he would have done quite a lot of studies. And for him to make that bold statement, he must know what he's talking about when he said that the ancient British, Irish, and Scots were short-statured, short black people. And we know who they are from Africa. Also, in 1905, we had Charles Squire, who described two distinctive human stocks in the British Isles at the time of the Roman conquest, adding that there is no evidence of any others. And he writes that the earliest of these two races would seem to have inhabited our islands from the most ancient times and may, for our purpose, be described as Aboriginal, the original people. It was the people that built the long barrows, we'll come to that in the presentation, and which is variously called by ethnologists the Iberian, Mediterranean, Berber, Basque, Silurian, or Etruscan race. All these different names, but you're familiar with those names now. In physique, it was short-statured, swarty, dark-haired, dark-eyed, and long-skulled. Its language belonged to the class called the Hamatic, the surviving types of which are found among the Golas, the Abyssinians, the Berbers, and other North African tribes. And it seems to have come originally from some part either in Eastern, Northern, or Central Africa. So here we have Charles Squire clearly talking about the groups of Africans who found their way in ancient times to Britain and the different names that he has for them. And he also points to where he thinks they came from. He said they came from either Eastern, Northern, or Central Africa. In physique, they were short, swarty. We already know what swarty means as well from the English dictionary. It refers to a person's complexion or skin color, and it means that they are dark in complexion, dark in skin color. These are the races that would have inhabited the island from, he said, the most ancient times, and that they should be described as Aboriginal. And they were the people who built the long burrows as well. We're gonna come to those long burrows. And then we've got eyewitness descriptions of the Irish as well, for example, because the Romans were trying to expand their empire, you know, right across Britain. But there was a group of people who put up quite a formidable fight against the Roman invasion. So much so, they never ever got to conquer Ireland. But, you know, they conquered parts of Britain. And so during the time of the Roman conquest, Caesar and Tacitus are reported to have described the Irish as small, dark Irish of southwest of Ireland. And that's according to William Boyd Dawkins. In 55 and 54 BC, we got Julius Caesar, who invaded Britain. But as I said, he made little headway because there were some formidable fighters who we were up against. So right up to 253 and again through up to 258 AD, the Roman army under Septimius Severus was still trying unsuccessfully to beat the Scots of Scotland and Ireland. So by this time, they've made their way through Britain and they've got as far as York. The Roman Empire stretched into Britain, right up to York, but they couldn't get beyond Northumberland, Scotland, and Ireland. So we have a description there of the people being dark and Irish. And here we have another Roman eyewitness account. And this is apparently written by Caesar himself. There is the writing, which has been translated to mean, we may infer on the authority of Caesar that the inhabitants of Britain in his time painted themselves with a dye. Where have we seen Africans paint themselves? Well, yeah, we were watching them. So we've seen them when we went to the continent of Africa. And they painted themselves with a dye that they extracted from the woad. The designation Picti or painted men would thus be applicable to all the tribes of Britain of whom Caesar had any knowledge. It was about the year 360 AD that those who were subsequently known as the Picts of Scotland received the distinctive appellation of Picts to distinguish them from the Scoti or the Scoti. All right, so these are groups of Africans to reach Europe, in particular Britain, and they were not known by their indigenous names. Notice, they've got new names by the time they reached Britain. They are being called the Picts. And, when you read about the description of these people that reached Britain, you have to think, okay, so could there be a direct correlation between the description of these people that reached Britain and maybe the Baka people of the Congo that we were looking at a little earlier in our presentation? Caesar was describing these people who he saw in 360 AD, and this was prior to the arrival of the Caucasians, because he's not saying that he saw Caucasian people there, and he said they were known as Picts. He said they were known as Picts, and they painted themselves. All right, then again, as we continue to look into whether or not the Africans were the original people of Europe, we've got the book Riddles of Prehistoric Times, which is available on Amazon and is considered by academics and scholars of great significance and value to literature. And it says in there that the first men were probably small in stature, dark-skinned. The Iberians in ancient times, Iberians, another word that we're hidden behind, the Iberians in ancient times inhabited the western and southern parts of Europe, the northern parts of Africa. In fact, all parts reach from the Mediterranean Sea. The Basques, we're hidden behind, in Spain and France, the little dark Welshmen, the Scotch, the Black Celts, to the west of Shannon River in Ireland, as well as the same kind of men in Brittany and Equitine in France. The Gaunches of the Canary Islands and the Berbers in Africa are all probably the remnants of the race. Wow. So he is describing a group of people, Africans from North Africa, all the way across the Mediterranean, all the way across Europe, right up into Ireland and Britain, and across France as being remnants of the dark-skinned race. And that's in the book, Riddles of Prehistoric Times. You'll find that quote in there. Again, the evidence, when you're gathering the evidence to, determine whether or not, from the description of some of these authors, could some of these people who they talk about as the original people of Europe be the same Africans we were just looking at back then. And so, this man as well, one of the reasons why his work is considered by academics and scholars to be so great is because the way he approached his evidence gathering was such, because he was a trained lawyer, and he gathered his evidence in a way that he would have done should he be preparing a case for court. And he describes the Iberians as an ancient people, and he found that they were spread across the western and the southern parts of Europe and the northern parts of Africa and around the Mediterranean Sea. And he breaks down all the areas as well where they can be found. So there we go. We've got our description again of some of the original occupants of Britain from another source. And here we go further into the Riddles of Prehistoric Times and the book by Anderson, where it gives a fuller description of the original occupants of Southern Europe, Northern Africa, Arabia, France, and the British Isles. And he describes them all as a race of small men, an average height of about 4 foot 5 inches in build, and small build, dark complexion. And it said that they arrived in Ireland on ships and were known as the Formatians. The Formatians is a name on that earlier list that I gave as well. And here in this book called Ireland, Past and Present by Tom Ireland, we referred to as the Fur Blogs. And the Fur Blogs were a small Mediterranean race, it says. You know that Mediterranean, when they're talking about that, they're talking about a small dark race there. Northern Ireland was inhabited by Picts. Generally, interestingly, he calls us dark whites. Dark whites, trying to work that one out, that we know the Mediterranean race, were black. So what does it say? Ireland was first inhabited by the flint users of the Neolithic or New Stone Age, and then by a small Mediterranean race of bronze users known as the Fur Blogs. When the Gauls came, Northern Ireland at least, was inhabited by the Picts. So he's saying there, by the time the Gauls, the Gaels, by the time they came, Northern Ireland at least was inhabited by Picts, generally dark white, black-haired and rather small people, also Mediterranean, like some of the Mediterranean of today. What we have to remember is that also when we read some of the works of some of these historians, they try to write themselves into history by, confusing us, by calling black people, the Picts, who we know from so many other scholars were dark-skinned people. And here he's calling them, dark whites. Interesting. Anyway, here he says in this book that the Neolithic or the Stone Age era people, when they arrived in Ireland, were informed of what they actually looked like, that they were flint users because they'd use the flint to chip away at stone. And, we've seen some of the engravings that they do when they chip away at stones as well. And the small Mediterranean race as well. We know so much about that small Mediterranean race. They were smelting and creating loads of bronze artifacts that have been found as well. And these were the Fur Blogs, okay? So dark whites, that's an interesting one, but let's not be confused by that. So who are the Black Irish and where do they come from? You can find the answer in a book called When the World Was Black, The Untold History of the World's First Civilizations by Supreme Understanding. The Black Irish, it says, ultimately descend from several waves of Black people who came into Europe over the past 50,000 years. Within the past 2,000 years, Europe has seen the spread of the Moors, who occupied much more than just Spain, as well as African envoys of the ancient Roman Empire. But Ireland was settled by Black people long before either of these people came. So what we're hearing here is that there were different waves of Africans that found their way to Europe. We've got the small statured people that found their way to Europe. 2,000 years ago, there was another group of Africans that found themselves to Europe. We know that in around 700 AD, there was another group of Africans called the Moors that found their way to Europe and Spain and into Britain as well. And then we know during the Roman Empire era, there were more Africans who were part of the Roman Empire that found their way to Spain, to England with Septimus Severus. And one of the reasons why, Septimus Severus, who was also Black, was given the charge to lead this army, which comprised of tens of thousands of Black people in his army. Why he was sent, now we know why he was sent to Britain to fight against the Scots and the Irish, because they were unbeatable up until then. And even then, even though they had mainly a Black army to fight another Black group of people, and isn't that familiar until today? When we look at what's happening in Haiti, and they wanted to send in the Kenyans to go and fight the Haitians, and now they're training, the Canadians are training up Africans from the Caribbean to go into Haiti. And then you've got, the situation in Sudan where you've got the Arabs who are Black fighting against the non-Arabs who are also Black. And then you've got, in Cameroon, the fighting, in Congo. So Black and Black fighting everywhere. It's nothing new. Even during the Roman days of the Roman Empire, the Roman army was made up of tens of thousands of Africans who were sent into Britain to fight against the Picts, to try and conquer Britain, the whole of Britain, the British Isles, for the Roman Empire. So here's a map that's showing Doggerland. Now, this Doggerland is a region in Northwest Europe that was at one time home to the Mesolithic people before the rising of the sea levels. And this is really interesting because this area called Doggerland has actually been flooded out now and is underwater, under the sea level. So around 6,000 years ago, people were actually forced out of this part of the land to higher ground, because when the ice cap melted, it just flooded the region. And you can see the lightest shade of green, that was land up to 18,000 BC. And then the slightly darker, after the lightish area, that was land up to about 8,000 BC. And then by 7,000 BC, where you've got the darkish area as well, that was still land. But today, the pinkish area is what we've got of land. And that green area, which was land, is now actually under sea. And there's evidence of the Doggerland under sea as well, because when the sailors go out and they're catching their fish, the fishermen, they kept bringing up all these ancient bones, ancient tools, all these artifacts. Some of it dated back as far back as 9,000 years ago. And so, they became known as the artifacts of the Doggerland, this submerged bit of land next to Britain, which was part of Britain, which almost linked us to other parts of Europe. And then there were these group of archaeologists and paleontologists who used this really sophisticated piece of equipment, and they went out. It's the sort of equipment that they said they used for drilling the North Sea region. And these scientists went out and they were able to reconstruct, using this digital model, they were able to reconstruct nearly 46,620 square kilometers of Doggerland. and what it looked like before it was flooded. Wow. I mean, this is just so much more. So how did our ancestors reach these foreign lands, you know? Now, one of the ways that they reached the foreign land was by the seas, because the ancient Africans who traveled the seas were great navigators. By this time, you know, there was so much knowledge in the North African region of Africa, so much ancient knowledge of the solar system, of the seas, of navigation. And in my book, The Remarkable Accomplishments of Ancient African Civilization, I actually speak of the incredible scientific knowledge that our ancestors actually had. So if you look at page 17 in that book, I talk about the East Africans who 300 BC actually constructed stone calendar pillars, meticulously aligned with the stars and the constellations. They were creating sophisticated calendar systems. And we also know that 6,000 years ago, the ancient African Sumerians were recording star flares, further evidence of Africans' knowledge of astronomy. And we know also that the Dogons, these were the people who possessed the knowledge of the planetary system, and they were able to predict, you know, the orbiting cycle of the Sirius star as well. 60-year orbiting cycles, they were able to predict it. And so, you know, our people, by the time they hit the seas, you know, they understood the planetary system, and they were great seafaring people. They had these enormous vessels that they would go on the open waters with. And, you know, of course, because they, you know, there were land, they knew that there was land between the lands, between the seas, on either side of the seas as well, because, you know, a lot of land in ancient times was disappearing as the ice was melting. But they knew the land was there, and they knew that there were people on those lands as well. And so when they went on the open waters, you know, they had the understanding of celestial navigation, they had the knowledge of how to calculate their positions, they could read the stars for their locations. They had an understanding of the maps, so, you know, they would draw out maps and charts. They understood the ocean currents, the weather patterns, you know. So these sailors, these people were great sailors. They were far from ignorant people. They weren't just turning up at places by accidents. They were great navigators, because they actually relied on the position of the star, the sun, the moon to determine their location and their directions. And we know all of this as well from the huge megalithic stone calendars that they built all around the world, you know, that they would use to tell the time and the seasons, and because they were great observers of the stars. And we also know that they integrated their knowledge of the solar system, even in their architectural buildings of their ancient monuments, because even today, when there's like a solar eclipse, for example, some of these tombs in some of these megalithic buildings actually light up. I mean, how sophisticated does your knowledge have to be in order to build ancient monuments that light up when there's an eclipse or some other really interesting, you know, solar event that happens, you know? So these people had great navigational skills, and, you know, they understood the waters. They knew when to sail the seas they knew the direction of the wind, like the monsoon wind, when it would, the direction that it would go in. They probably observed this from the birds as well. So great seafaring people. Look at this wonderful image here. Compliments to Dr. Clyde Winters. This is one of his great AI pieces. I absolutely love it. A typical example here of our ancient ancestors and their remarkable sea vessels and their ability to navigate the vast oceans and the waters. And so that is definitely one of the ways that we travel around the world, and there's a huge amount of documentation as well to confirm some of these long voyages that our ancestors did beyond the horizon. I mean, they were great navigators. And so, you know, when we start to think about how ancient this knowledge is, you know, to think the nerve that some professors would say that we had no history to speak of, when we were navigating the world, when we were building these huge, colossal, megalithic structures, and, you know, and well, I'm going to quickly go on. How am I doing for time, Dr. Winters? Hopefully,
You have, it's about 10 more minutes, but we can go as long as you wish.
Okay, we'll go a few more minutes, because there's some more. There's so much exciting stuff. Wow, there's so much here. Let me. So let's have a look. Yeah, for the last 10 minutes, then let's have a look at some of the dwellings, the sort of homes that the Picts would have lived in, and how they built it as well. And so in ancient Scotland, they have these types of houses that they called earth houses, and they also have these type of houses that they call brocks. And, you know, there's all these names, weems, you know, that they call the Picts houses, different types of dwellings. So the Pictish kingdom is notable for their stylized but exuberant beauty of its carved memorial stones and crosses, and also it's known for the round stone towers known as brocks or Pictish towers, and the underground stone houses called weems or Picts houses. And both of these predate this kingdom. That's from the Britannica. Okay, and interestingly, some similarities actually exist between the Scottish brock. This is what I noticed as I was looking at it. I'm like, oh wow! Look at the similarities for yourself between the Scottish brock and some of the stone houses built in Zimbabwe in South Africa. Yeah, the building in Zimbabwe in South Africa, this includes what they call an Iron Age brock, and they have a vast circuit. Let me just show you what it actually looks like, and you tell me if you can see the similarities. Okay, so this is a reconstruction of an ancient circular Scottish home that they call brocks, these Pictish homes, okay? Really interesting. Look at the perimeter wall, the circular perimeter wall, the shape of the roofs on those round house constructions. We've even got round houses up until today out here in the villages in Africa. You know, they might call them round huts or round houses, straw roofs. Look at the shape and the design of those roofs. This, I can tell you here, is that the Shetland Amenity Trust lists about 120 sites in the Shetlands as candidate brocks, while the Royal Commission on the Ancient and Historical Monuments of Scotland identifies a total of 571 brock sites throughout the country. 571 brock sites that have survived until today throughout the country. Wow. Okay, and it's going to say there is a little doubt that the hollow-walled brock tower was purely an invention in what is now Scotland. Even the kinds of pottery found inside them that most resembled the South British styles were local hybrid forms and forms the increasing number, albeit still pitifully few, of radiocarbon dates for the primary use of brocks. And then there was a secondary use later on as well in the 1st century. But let me go to the next slide so that you can see what inside looks like. So this is an aerial view of the reconstruction of this ancient circular Scottish home by the name of a brock home. Okay, and you know, you can see the circular outer wall, and this was said to have been built around 400 BC and 100 AD, and they've done the archaeological checks, and with the evidence that they've got, they think that this is, you know, a good representation of what a broch would have looked like. Okay, so there you've got your broch, and don't forget on the previous slide, this tower as well. Okay, and this is a Pictish tower. All right, and it was used as a lookout. It was also used as a storeroom for storing their seeds. You know, it had a number of uses. Now look here. This is what they call a cornical tower at the Great Kingdom of Zimbabwe, which is 3,027, 3,027 years ago. Now, this cornical tower, is that not very similar to what they were calling the broch in the previous slide that we saw in Scotland? And look at the perimeter wall as well of the Great Kingdom of Zimbabwe, that round circular perimeter wall. And this is an aerial view of the Queen's quarters. This bit here was up on the hill more. This is what they call the cornical tower. Was this also used as a lookout? Was this also used for storing grain? Interesting. This is a reconstruction of an ancient Zimbabwean or ancient Southern African thatch-roofed circular home, round house, a hut, straw roof. Yeah, I've put here the construction of an ancient Scottish broch. Wow. Can anyone else see the similarities, or is it only me that can see the similarities between the housing construction here that the ancients were doing in Southern Africa and in Scotland, in Britain? Wow. Here we see same culture, same cultural practices, same people. Interesting. This is a huge area as well. Ancient burial practices and the later Christian burial practices of the Picts. Wow, this is a phenomenal area. It actually takes us into the Stonehenge. It takes us into more Pict symbolism. It takes us into when the Picts were converted from their solar star worshipping religion that can be linked back to Egypt when they were converted to Christianity. And there's a big buzz at the moment, isn't there? Great, I'm just skipping loads of loads of slides now, because I just want to show you 2 slides from here to kind of finish off on. Oh, you won't understand that without seeing this slide here. This is a stone of quite enormous proportion. And it's really important when you're talking about the Picts. And what it's depicting here is a hunting scene. And there's various warriors who have gone out hunting. They're on horses. They're chasing the deer with hounds. There's a character in the middle here of a woman, and she's sitting sideways on a horse. They don't know who she is, but they think that she must have been important to the Picts at this time, and that maybe she was a queen, why they carved her into the stone to commemorate her. So, you know, by the time I've gone into this slide, which is loads of slides later, we're looking at some more Pictish engravings. Now let's go to the next slide. This is a close-up of the woman who was sitting on the horse, this mysterious woman on the hunt. Do you see the similarity between her headdress and the headdress that was worn by Egyptian pharaohs? Wow. This is, you know, your striped headcloth that was often associated with royalty, that depicted ancient Egyptian royals in their arts and in their sculpture. And look at the similarity here, and the robe that this woman was wearing as well. Really interesting. So there's a whole history of the ancient religion of the Picts. We're skipping through all that because to end up on, I want to show you one slide. And there's a big thing at the moment, as I said, about the Black Jesus of Russia. Well, what about the Black Jesus of Britain? Well, this is an image here, and it's a really powerful image because, you know, there's a time when the Picts get converted to Christianity in this whole story that I've skipped over, yeah? And when they get converted to Christianity, they bring some of their solar symbolism with them that you can see on this plate here. And this is the image of a pig on a crucifixion. So this is the image of a Black Jesus, a pig on the cross, a small statured African on the cross who'd been converted to Christianity. And, you know, this piece of artifacts is symbolic of the Picts being converted to Christianity and how they took some of their ancient belief system about the sun, the rising of the sun, and the sun rays, you know, the sun worshippers and all what they believed in, how they brought it with them into the Christian religion. And here you have, you know, on the one side, like I said, evidence of the sun worship religion and the crucifixion, the cross. And there's other symbolism to do with African artifacts. There's so much that I would like to, you know, I'm going to finish on this one. There's so many more, but I'm going to finish on this one. This is a carving, a stone carving that they've actually found in Ireland. And they think that it might have functioned as a mask for ceremonial purposes. They might have used it to fashion bronze masks, gold masks even. And it's clearly the depiction of an African flat-faced person. Could this be our flat-faced Irish person that we saw earlier in our presentation? Wow, this image here is the face of a young girl, short-statured girl from our hunter-gatherer group from the forests of Congo. And here we see her with a painted body. And are these the ones that made their way to Ireland and Scotland, or one of the waves of Africans that made their way? I'm gonna leave the presentation there for now, but it's just phenomenal stuff when you start researching our African history in Britain. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Clyde.
Shanice, you're froze. Could you come back on?
Okay, not sure why. Okay, shall I go out and come back in again?
Well, yeah, I can still hear you, but
yeah, I can hear you as well, but I'm not seeing me. Let me leave the studio and
come on back. Okay, family, as you can see, wow. You know, I wanted you to see this phenomenal presentation by Sister Shanice. This, as I said, this is such a fantastic researcher. She's written 2 books. I hope you guys will go to Amazon.com. When you go to Amazon.com, purchase her books, because the Sister Shanice has written so many great books. She's presented so much great evidence that you guys need to check her out. And she has a program every Wednesday, and she has a radio program, I think, on Saturday. I don't know what's wrong with the voice; it's kind of scratchy.
Oh, let me put you through my external speaker. Maybe it'll sound better that way.
I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, like I said, family, you know, this is so true. You know, Mayavi, he says that phenomenal indeed, Sister Dr. Shanice Credos. Yes, this is the doctor. This is the doctor. But the point is this, is that Sister Shanice has done so much fantastic research. She's written so many books, and I hope you guys will support her. We went a little bit over time. Did you want to make a final comment?
I think my final comment would be join us on our Black History course, where we go deeper, where we provide so much more information. I had to skip over so much, and this isn't even what I'd be presenting in class. It doesn't have to repeat itself, because there is just so much to Black British African history in Britain.
Just a moment. Hi, family. Join us in our new Revealing Hidden Chapters of British Black History 6-week course, Part 2. The instructors are Dr. Clyde Winters and Sister Shanice. Join this important class. Learn more about British history. Learn about how it was blacks who were the first people to live in Britain. These black people, in a sense, were there. Join us the 29th of April. Unlike the hidden chapters of British African History Part 2, dive into your own investigative Black History course with Sister Shanice and Dr. Clyde Winters. Yes, it's time you join us. You join us, British, the Britons, the people who ruled Britain for thousands of years. You can register at https://sistershanice.gumroad.com/L/LHQXUS. This is a 6-week British course. You're going to learn about when Britain was African, the African Bronze Age, the African Anglo-Saxons, the Celts, the Black Vikings. All of this you're going to learn. Join this course. It starts Monday, the 29th of April, and it's going to last until the 3rd of June, 2024. Study fees for this course is £199. Yes, only £199. But if you join before April, it's only £149. Join us. Come and join this class. This class will be from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. London time. In America, that'll be 1:30 p.m. Join us for this new Black British History course. Learn, join us. Register for this class at https://sistershanice.gumroad.com/L/HQXUS. Yes, join us to this important Black History class. This Black History class that will teach you everything you need to know about Black British history. This was just a sample. As I told you. As I told you, we have the mistress of history, the mistress of the history of the Black people of Britain, the Britons. Join us in that class, because it's so much that we want to share with you, and it's so much that you can learn. Also, make sure to join us, Sister Shanice, every Wednesday on her website, YouTube website. Support this, because this is where you're going to get your knowledge. This is where you're going to learn our history. Anything else you want to say, Sister Shanice?
What I'll do is I'll post the link in the chat. So if anyone wants to go online and take a look at the course brochure, they'll be able to do so. So chat with everyone in the studio. That's in the studio. Not sure how join the chat. Here we go. I think.
It will show up in the chat. It will show up in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Where do I put the comment? Connect. It says I need to connect my YouTube account to join the live. Sorry about that, family. Let me do it a different way. Or are you able to, if I put it in the chat, are you able to?
They can see it. You can put it in the chat. They'll see it.
Okay, so. No, I think it's going to go in the StreamYard studio chat. So I'll put it here in the StreamYard studio chat, and then if you can paste it onto the YouTube one, that would be brilliant. I'm trying it. Oh, right, hang on. I've just gone outside into YouTube itself. There it is, family. Click it, check it out. come and join us. It would be absolutely fantastic, Blacktastic, to have you on board. Look at the wonderful comments. Look at that Black Olmec. Yeah. And look at what she's got in her hand. What did you see that she had in their hand? Someone said, look at what, someone said, looks like a duck to me. What were you talking about then? Can you see that?
So there's the website where you can sign up for the class if you're interested. But again, the thing is this, is that, thank you for granting us this opportunity to hear from the mistress of history, the mistress of Black British history. And you got to check out her website. You got to join her on YouTube every Wednesday, because she is teaching us the truth, and we need to know much. Carol asks, how much is it in US dollars? That'll be a little over 200. It's a little over $200, not that much.
You can pay by installments as well.
Yeah, you can pay by installments too. So check us out. Again,
it'd be great to have some family members from the US on the course, because we're related. When we go into our history in modern times, more recent times, I should say, we'll be able to see how we are related as Africans. What time Wednesday on my channel? Oh, thank you so much. So you can get me at 8 p.m. That's British summer time, 7 p.m. GMT time, 3 p.m. I think that's Eastern time, and 2 p.m. Central time. So yeah, please do join me live on those times. It would be awesome. And please do subscribe to my channel as well while you're there. Got loads of videos. It's just exciting times. We have access to information today in a way that we never had before. All those books, those ancient books that I was referring to, if I wanted to find one of those ancient books, it could have taken me, like in the past 2 years, just to be able to locate the book and to be able to get hold of it. And now, at a touch of a button, I'm able to get hold of those books. Yes, I did have a slide on the Stonehenge and the black builders of the Stonehenge, but didn't get around to it this time. But yeah, there's a huge amount of history around the Stonehenge. Yes, we built that too. And there are other stone circles, very similar to the Stonehenge all over the world. And when you begin to think about, it makes you wonder, how did our people move those huge megalithic blocks, some of them weighing even 50 tons? It was like, wow. But anyway, we're well over time. This is like when we're on our course. We're supposed to finish in 2 hours, but all 3 hours we're still going on the course. So
we're still talking. You guys are in our class. Sometimes we would be talking an hour after the class was over.
Yeah.
So I hope you'll join us in our class. And because the thing is this, is that we do want everyone to learn. We do want to, in a sense, make sure that people understand our British history, because see, we're not alone. We're not alone. We're not alone. We're cousins. And the thing is this, is that once you know the real history, you can't help but go forward. Thank you very much, Shanice, for joining us today. You guys have a great evening. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.